you throw one 70 yards out there, you raise eyebrows. Or you throw it super hard and break fingers, you raise eyebrows. And I did both.
So we're here with Midwest Legends. We're with the one and only, the Midwest legend, the Packer legend, NFL legend, Brett Favre. Brett, thanks for being on the Midwest
Thanks
Legends
for having
podcast.
me. Winter has hit
Yes.
outside here.
You're back in Wisconsin, and winter is here to bring you back and invite you a little bit different than the Mississippi weather and whatnot. So,
Quite a bit different.
but it's fitting for a man that played in Green Bay, in the cold, in the snow, to come back to this weather, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Midwest Legends podcast. We're going to go over some of the history, some of the wins, some of the stories, all right?
Yeah, sounds good.
All
Thanks
right,
for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
I'll try to go through stuff, kind of chronologically as much as I can because that's
right.
easy for me. And we only got so much time, so we might have to skip some things, so I apologize if there's some good things. I know you've got a lot of great stories, but I'll start kind of from, not when you're born, but back in your childhood, right? You grew up in Kiel, Mississippi, correct?
Yeah.
And I know your dad was really important in your life. You coached you, and so how was that having your dad as a coach at a young age?
Well, it's the only thing I knew. But going back before I even played, well, first of all, mom and dad. My mom was a special education teacher at our school. 1st through 12th was right there. So, these days you go to school here at elementary, you go to middle school here, or you go middle school and high school at the same place. But they're generally not all in the same place. So we always rode to school together, rode home together, except doing football. So when it was football season, me and my older brother, when we were 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, on up until it was our turn to play, we were after school, we would go over and we would be ball boy, water boy, whatever. We would hang out with the big guys.
Yeah.
And then ride home with Dad. So, I mean, that was just kind of we talked football on the way. We talked football on the way back home. In the baseball season, we transitioned into baseball. So that was just kind of our growing up days. So when it was my turn to play, it just seemed normal. Having my dad as a coach. He was harder on me than he was on the other players. He was harder on my two brothers than he was on, and he would tell us, I'm gonna treat you worse than I treat the rest of the guys, because I don't want anyone to think that I'm showing favoritism to my sons.
Makes sense, yeah.
And he held us to that too.
Right.
He was tough.
He was tough in general as well. I heard a story that you had told one time where he was working on the roof, right?
Yeah.
And he told me that.
He fell head first. Yeah, so we had the house we grew up in. My grandmother had, she and my grandfather had built in the 40s, so it had been around a while, and this had the same roof. It was a slate tile that you could, it was in squares, and like if you had one in your hand, you could kind of pry it and it would break. So as you would imagine, Mississippi, it's hot and humid. It had a lot of mold and stuff. Yeah. So he was up there trying to, I don't know what he was thinking, but he slipped or slid down the roof, and we were in the kitchen, and there was a window right behind the sink. And we could hear him up there rustling around. It was a single story with an attic house. So fortunately, it wasn't a two-story, because he would have been dead. But we hear a ruckus, like, what is that? And all of a sudden, you see him come head first out the window, right onto the sidewalk. So we go running out. Dad, are you okay? And he's like on his knees, and he broke his forearm. Jeez. He had blood coming down his face, and he's yelling, "Get back in the damn house! I'm fine." Didn't even go to the doctor.
So he not only expected you to be tough, but he's a pretty tough guy himself, right? And he didn't want any compassion.
He practiced what he preached.
Yeah, right. I heard a story too when you were a kid. There was a time when I think you hurt your toe pretty bad, and
in fact, I was thinking about that story. Me and my brother, we were actually going to a state baseball tournament, American Legion. It was in the summer. We were the bat boys. We were still young. So we're waiting to load up the station wagon and drive to this. We had probably about a 4-hour drive. So we had about an hour before we were loading up to go, and it was raining, and we were riding in our shed on bicycles, and there was a bike that was laying on the side.
Okay.
And I was barefoot, and my toe hit the fender, and it made a big gash in the toe, blood everywhere. We run inside, got blood tracking everywhere, and Dad's like, "Let me see." Puts me up, washes it off on the sink, and if I could show you the scar, you would go, "Now that should have had stitches."
Right.
He was like, "Wrap it up. We ain't got time. It'll be fine." So it bled for about 2 months.
Yeah, I'll believe it. And obviously, you kind of embodied that through your career of being this Iron Man, this tough guy. And it sounds like a lot that you're, like you said, your dad practiced what he preached and he put it into you. But I think one of the interesting stories is your dad being your high school coach is, he ran an offense where you didn't really, it wasn't a heavy throwing offense, right? That's what he had you do.
It wasn't no throw.
Right?
Maybe 2 or 3 throws a game.
Yeah.
Wishbone.
Yep.
In fact, when I coached 2 years of high school football, I was the offense coordinator right after I retired. And we had 100 kids out. Offense was probably 50 guys, and I had them all in front of me. And I said, "Look, we're going to run the same offense that you guys ran previous. We may change up some terminology and things like that." And I said, "But it's a lot different than when I was your age. I ran the wishbone."
Yeah.
And I saw them kind of looking. I said, "You don't know what the wishbone is, do you?" And they go, "No." And then, one kid in the back, "Yeah, I do. I think that's what Nebraska used to run." I'm like, "Yeah." So, yeah, we didn't throw it very much.
It's interesting because obviously when you got into the NFL, you were the gunslinger, even in college, right, after a while. But to come from your high school and your dad coaching to not really throwing the ball much is amazing that then you became known for, what you could do with the ball. So
At one time I had every passing record, good and bad, in the NFL. And I would often think, not in a braggadocious way, but like internally, and I would say it on occasion, can you believe a guy who never threw in high school has every passing record in the NFL? Anything is possible.
Right. Well, and also when you were getting recruited, and I know there wasn't a lot of recruiting, but basically, it's my understanding from a story that I heard was that your dad would have them come watch you in warm-ups, right? So they could actually see you throw the ball.
I don't know the exact number of passes we threw during an actual game, but I'd say 3 to 5. So pregame was not like an orchestrated 7-on-7 throwing session. I was just out there like, "Hey, go that way." and I would throw it. I could throw it about 70, 75 yards my senior year in high school. Whether I knew where I was throwing it or not would get your attention. It's kind of like someone who can run a 140. Whether he can catch or hold a football is one thing, but you can't coach jumping, running, throwing. Either you're born with it or not. And so you throw 170 yards out there, you raise eyebrows. Or you throw it super hard and break fingers, you raise eyebrows.
Right.
And I did both.
Was there a time when you were a kid, maybe it was in high school, maybe it was before that, where you realized that you kind of had some sauce, that you could really rifle that ball?
Well, I knew the only thing I had to compare it to was the people that I played high school. You think back, 87 I graduated, so 85, 86, 87. There was not social media, so if a guy in North Mississippi was lighting it up,
Yep.
I wouldn't know about it unless it was on our news.
Sure.
Or in our paper.
Yep.
So the only thing I knew was the people that I played against or played in my area, I could outthrow them. Like in baseball, I threw it a lot harder than everyone else, and I knew that separated me from at least the local people.
Yeah, I thought you said at one time, were you throwing the ball at this point when it was like you could throw 90 miles an hour?
In baseball, I was low to mid-90s in high school.
How was your accuracy?
You would hope it was on there.
I was going to say with that
I
kind
had
of
many
speed.
guys in the head. But it worked for my favor. Yeah, they got a free base, but the next guy would bat from the dugout, man. He was afraid to get
He was
in the bat
backed up,
box.
right? Yeah. So you were able to strategically use that speed and maybe the accuracy.
So baseball and football was sort of similar, especially early in my career. I would throw it sometimes, and an announcer would be like, "Well, he's got to take a little bit off of that one now." and eventually I learned a little touch. But when I was like in college trying to get people's attention, the best way to get attention wasn't to throw a little. It was throw one either 80 yards or throw it where it breaks the face mask.
Right.
Then people go, who threw that?
Yeah.
That was kind of my plan, if you want to call it that.
Kind of way to differentiate yourself where people are like, who's that guy over
Yeah.
there? Let's keep an eye on
The
him.
kid who breaks the face mask.
Yeah.
We
gotta
got
watch.
to keep looking at this guy.
Yeah. Well, so then you ended up at Southern Miss, right?
Yeah.
And you weren't the starter or even the backup initially, right? I mean, where were you on the depth chart originally?
We had 7 quarterbacks on the depth chart, and I was 7.
Yeah.
And a couple of guys got hurt, a couple of guys got moved to different positions. Then a couple of guys didn't perform. And then it was me that was left. And they said, I ended up as a true freshman. We opened in 87, excuse me. We opened up, our opening game was at Alabama. They had just came off the national championship the previous year.
Yeah.
They had Derek Thomas. Now, when you're at that age, do you remember Derek Thomas?
I do remember Derek Thomas, yeah.
Well, he was on one end, and the other side was Broderick Thomas. Both of them first-round picks. Broderick played with Tampa.
Okay.
And they were still there. And I ended up at the start of the season, I was on a traveling squad, so the top 3 at each position. And I was hoping I got the chance to play. I was like, maybe I'll get a chance to play. As the game unfolded, I was like, hopefully next week.
Right.
They were kicking our butt, man. And I quickly was like, maybe it'll be a little easier next week. But we played Tulane the following week, and first quarterback was struggling. They put in the second quarterback. He was struggling. We're down 17-3. The same exact scenario as when I came in as a Packer.
Yep.
We're down to Cincinnati, 17-3, I believe. And I just started wheeling and dealing and brought us back. We won.
I heard somewhere that originally, I don't know, did you do some punting and there was a story, maybe you're just messing around about, you thought you
No,
might
I was a backup punter. I went to Southern Miss as a utility player. So punter, defensive back, quarterback, whatever you need me to do, I'll do. That was a selling point. The guy who recruited me was our offensive line coach, Mark McHale. Great guy, great coach. And he always, would take me aside. How you doing? Good here.
Yeah.
And this will be throughout the year, because he really stuck his neck out for me. So I kind of, gravitated to him. Right before half, he comes over to me. He said, and he had this distinct way of talking. He was like, "Son, you need to get loose. You're going to go in." And I don't know what I was thinking, but I thought he was talking about being the punter.
Right.
So I'm over there stretching my leg, simulating the punts. Well, thank goodness it wasn't punter, it was quarterback.
Yeah. Obviously, how you started with that game and then with the Packers is historic, but if I'm right on this, that game too, you had been backing up, so the night before, you went out and had a good time before, right?
Well, I didn't go anywhere. We stayed in the room, me and my roommate. We played quarters, which I never drank a drop in high school.
Sure.
I made up for it in college. Fortunately, I don't drink anymore. It's been since 1998, so I'm so thankful I don't. But this was like one of my first drinking episodes.
Yeah.
My roommate was 6'8", 330.
The big boy.
Great guy. Had drank many of beers back in high school. Well, he said, "Let's play quarters." And I said, "What is quarters?" And he said, "Do you have a quarter?" And I said, "No," which I didn't have a pot to piss in. So he ended up taking a washer off the sink. He undid the sink, the faucet, and got a washer off of it. And he said, "So we bounce it in the cup. This is the goal. If I bounce it in the cup, you have to take a drink." I said, "Okay." I don't know how many beers we drank, but I felt pretty rough the next morning. And as you can imagine, September in Mississippi can be really hot.
Oh, I
It
bet.
was smoking hot. So I was hoping I was going to play in the game, but I was also not disappointed if I didn't, because I wasn't feeling very good. And lo
Sure.
and behold, I got put in the game
Yep.
on a hangover.
And then you changed the game, right? I mean, how did that game work out, right?
Up until that game, I never took a rep with the first team. I don't even think I took a rep with the second team in practice. So you can imagine the disconnect with me and the first. I got out there and they're like, "Hey, let's go." I was taking 9-step drops on a 3-step drop play, and there's no 9-step drop in football. And I say that because my quarterback coach, a guy named Jack White, great guy, he was like watching the film the next day. He goes, "Hey, great job, touchdown, we won the game. But can you tell me what footwork you got going on here?" And I was like, and I was notorious for this answer, even with Holmgren. I don't know. There was a lot of those. But I was, keep in mind that I ran the wishbone the previous year. We never like talked like, all right, I want you to read the high low. And if the weak safety blitz, you can change protection and slide left.
Yeah.
That would have been Chinese.
Yeah.
Like learning Chinese. So when I got to Southern Miss, even though it wasn't a complicated offense, it was way more complicated than what I'd run from a passing perspective.
Sure.
So the game was kind of a microcosm of that.
Yep.
I'd make a great play, and to the average Joe watching, they go, wow. But to the coach, it's like, what in the hell is he doing? And the answer is, he doesn't know.
Yeah.
But I just knew that I was going to give it all I had and wheel and deal.
Yeah, and you did, and it worked out pretty well, right? Yeah.
And then I, as I got reps with first team and started studying, preparing as a starter,
Yep.
obviously it got better.
Yeah. You eventually do so well that you get drafted in the NFL by the Falcons, right?
Yeah.
I think it was number 33 in 1991. Is that?
Yeah, I think there were two less teams, I think, then. So what is that, 30 teams?
Yeah, that might be right.
So I was 33rd pick, so I was early second round.
Yep.
Atlanta had 2 picks in the first round that year. Obviously, they didn't take me. And what's really funny about that that from the time my last college game was over to the time the draft started was probably about a 2-month window.
Okay.
My last college game, first of all, I hurt my hip, which later I ended up having my hip replaced. But every team in the league, except for like 2, failed me on a physical.
Yeah.
They said, you won't play more than 3 years. So I played 20.
Right.
But they were right. I ended up having to get my hip replaced. But Jerry Glanville was a coach in Atlanta, and as I found out later, and it's funny how things work out. I thought I was going to rot in Atlanta that year.
Yep.
I mean, Jerry didn't like me. He made it known. He treated me like crap. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me that I went to Atlanta, even though I thought at the time. And I try to tell the younger generation, you never know. You feel like the world's caving in on you right now. It may turn out to be the best thing that ever happened to you. Because I would have not gotten to Green Bay had it not been for going to Atlanta.
Yeah. Well, and obviously you didn't know at the time when you're sitting that year, right?
Right.
So what were you? Because I mean, you obviously came from where you were sitting, but then you became, the number one in
Right.
college. When you were sitting there as a professional, your first year, were you thinking this could happen and I just got to be patient, or what were the thoughts?
Well, I'm sure every player that is on the roster, just say it, we use pro football. Not everybody can play.
Yep.
In the position of quarterback, usually one guy plays and the other 2 sit and watch. And that was the case back in 91. But I wanted to play. I had a hard time pulling for the guy who was starting.
All right.
Call it what it is. I mean, and he had a great year that year. Chris Miller, he played lights out. So I was like, I'm never going to see the field.
Yep.
So when he would get tackled, I'd be like, don't get up. Don't get up. I'd be like, he'd get up, and I'd go, all right, damn. And I think that's just human nature. But I really wanted to play. And towards the end of the year, as good as Chris was playing, I was like, I'm never going to play.
Yeah.
If he plays like this, I'll never see the field. And I'm going to sit here and just get ridiculed by Jerry over and over again.
I mean, Jerry Glanville wasn't a big fan of you at that time, and obviously you proved him wrong. You should have thought it through. But when you initially met him in Atlanta, how was that? I mean, it sounds like that interaction wasn't great.
No, as I look back, it is one of the funnier stories. Yeah, there was 2 flights, so I got drafted in April. And back then, I don't know if it's still that way today. So right after the draft, the following day, you have to report for mini camp,
Yeah.
usually 3 days. So I was on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and the airport was in Gulfport, about 20 minutes away. They had 2 flights that went to Atlanta, one in the morning, one in the evening, and same return.
Yep.
The one in the morning is the one I was on. We got delayed. Well, I'm thinking. So the guy that picks me up in Atlanta, I'll never forget, Danny Mock. He eventually ended up working for the Packers in the scouting department.
Okay.
But he picked me up. Never met Danny. I don't know if you've ever been through Atlanta's airport. It's like,
It's huge.
it's bigger than Milwaukee.
Yep.
That was only the second time I ever was on a plane. And I'm by myself. He picks me up, and we got about an hour drive back to Sewanee. Keep in mind, they're practicing as we're riding. And I'm thinking, this is not a good start. And he's like, oh, it happens all the time. No big deal. No big deal. Coach won't be worried about it. And he made me feel at ease. So we pull up to the facility. I run in, get my shorts, jersey on, run out. Danny's waiting for me. He's like, Coach, I got your quarterback here. He's got his back to me. He's got his horn in his back pocket. He's got the old Bermuda shorts on, socks pulled up to his knees, cowboy hat. He turns and looks. He's got his sunglasses on, everything you envision.
Yep.
And he's like, Mississippi. I said, yes, sir, Coach. He said, what school are you from? And I thought to myself, damn, he just drafted me. Surely he would know that. But I said, Southern Miss. And he said, damn it, we drafted the wrong guy. We wanted the guy from Mississippi State. And I was like, should I laugh at this, or is he joking? And from there, it only got worse.
Sure. Besides that, the fact, you're backing up, the opportunity eventually you got out of there, right? But the one thing before we get out of that, I want to talk about, because you've been asked about this a million times, but that iconic draft photo, right, where you're sitting there.
That Baker Mayfield has made. Yeah.
Right.
He went through some work to get that.
Yeah, he did a good job.
He
right?
did a great job.
Yeah. When you did that shot, what were you thinking at the time?
Well, at the time, that obviously I wasn't in New York. I was in my bedroom and had a lot of people, friends and family there. And I just wanted to get drafted. Yep. I was not one of those that were like, I want to go here, and if I don't, I'm going to be a prick about it and make them trade me. I just wanted to go somewhere.
Yeah.
Didn't matter to me. Now, Dallas at the time was my favorite team. I grew up a Cowboys fan. Funny how quickly that changed.
Yeah, right.
So I just wanted an opportunity. And as each pick went by, I had heard that I may go one of the first 2 picks. I knew Atlanta wanted me.
Okay.
They had come back from several visits. They were one of the teams that passed me on my physical. June Jones was the quarterback coach and offense coordinator, great guy. He called me multiple times, which I knew they were really way more interested than everyone else, because like Mike Holmgren came and worked me out. He was offense coordinator at San Francisco. And he told me after the workout, hey, we like you, but we don't need a quarterback. We got Steve Young and Joe Montana. But this is part of my job. I'll go out and work out the quarterbacks, because maybe down the road we trade for you, we pick you up. You never know.
Right.
There was a lot of that, but Atlanta was really the only one that followed up on visits.
Okay.
So I sort of knew I was going to go to Atlanta. I just didn't know where. And when the first 2 picks went, I think Atlanta had the 3rd pick in the draft, which we drafted Bruce Pickens, DB from Nebraska.
Yep.
And then like the 13th pick, I think, or 15th, something like that, I think Mike Pritchard was a receiver from Colorado. So I was like, okay, if I am going to Atlanta, I have to wait to the 33rd pick.
Yep.
And Seattle and the Raiders both drafted a quarterback in the 1st round. And I knew that was a possibility, because both of them failed me on my physical.
Okay.
And I don't know if you remember Todd Marinovich.
I do. Yeah.
He went to the Raiders, and Mark McGuire's brother went to Seattle as a quarterback. And I knew that us three were kind of labeled the top three that will go. Who will take them, who knows. So I knew when those two went that I probably was going to go to Atlanta in the second round.
Okay. And then you got that photo done. And have you ever talked to Baker Mayfield about it?
Yeah.
What did you tell him?
I'm like, what the hell were you thinking? I said, this wasn't like a 5-minute thing. I mean, you did your homework. And he goes, man, you don't know the time I spent. Man, it's about as close to identical as you can get.
Well, and yours obviously was authentic for the time. I mean, that's the kind of clothes everybody was wearing, and that's what.
That's what I try to tell people, but they don't get it.
Yeah,
they go, "What are you doing wearing jorts?"
Yeah, right.
Believe it or not, they were the in thing back then.
It was different, right? I mean, it was the '90s, early '90s, and then so Baker Mayfield probably took a lot more time to orchestrate that photo than you had because it was just kind of
no question, no question.
But I thought it was cool he did it. Obviously, it sounds like you thought it was cool too.
Yeah, I got a kick out of it.
Obviously, then the real start of your NFL career is at the Packers. And how did you end up getting to the Packers? How did that go?
I was sitting in my kitchen with my dad, 2 brothers, down in Hancock County, Mississippi. A week, maybe not even a week after the season was over, we were eating boiled crawfish, which is kind of a deal down there.
Okay.
And the phone rings, not the cell phone. There were no cell phones. The house phone. My dad answers it. He says, "Hey, Brett, it's for you." I was like, "Who is it?" He goes, "Hell, I don't know." So I answer the phone. "Hello? Hey, Brett, this is June Jones." I thought, "Hey, June, what are you calling for?" I thought that was kind of weird. And he goes, "We just traded you to Green Bay." And I said, "You're lying." I'd never been traded before.
Yeah.
Didn't know anything about the process, but I didn't know if I was happy or sad. You'd imagine a 21-year-old kid thinking, well, Atlanta didn't want me. Who wants me?
Right.
So he quickly said, "Look, we traded you to Green Bay. It's a great opportunity for you. I wish you the best of luck. I enjoyed working with you." He said all of great things. And he said, "Just best of luck to you. Go get them."
Right.
And then right after that, Ron Wolf called. I never even heard the name Ron Wolf before. If I did, so I didn't know who he was. He said, I just took over as the GM of Green Bay. We're happy to have you. Looking forward to you. He said, I'll have you know, I was a GM at the Jets prior to that.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a pick in the first round. We had traded it away the previous year. But we would have taken you in the first round. I would have taken you the first pick overall if I'd had it. So I knew that this guy wanted me. And I knew it was I was like, not real sure where Green Bay. I knew the history. I was a history buff. I mean, I did a book report on Paul Hornung in the 3rd grade. I knew all about the Packers. Right. I just didn't know where it was. I knew it was cold.
Yeah.
Or it could be cold, but that's about the extent. I knew who Bart Starr was, and Willie Wood, Willie Davis, Herb Adderley, Jim Taylor, Paul. I knew all. I'd heard those names.
Yeah.
Maybe didn't watch Bart Starr play because it was a little before my time, but I knew who he was.
Yep.
And the glory days, the old Lombardi, I knew all about that. But I didn't know that there was like 25 years. They had a little lull, if you want to call it.
A little bit, yeah.
A long lull.
A long one, yes.
Yeah.
What did it feel like, the fact that I believe the Packers traded a first-round pick for you? I mean, how did you feel about that?
Well, what's interesting about that was there's only been 2 first-round picks in Southern Miss history.
Okay.
Which I find that to be low. One is a name you'll remember, and the only punter to be drafted in the first round, Ray Guy.
Yeah.
The second and only other first-round pick was Tony Smith, who I played with, and I was traded to Green Bay, and that pick, Atlanta, drafted Tony Smith with it. How about that?
That's pretty.
What are the odds? If you think about it, I was drafted in the second round. Whether or not I was first-round material is irrelevant. I was drafted in the second round, didn't play. And it's like I went back in the draft and got drafted in the first round for doing nothing, absolutely nothing. I didn't earn it or anything. In fact, I probably digressed throughout that year on beer and hot wings, and I got drafted in the first round for it from one of my old teammates. You know, so kind of funny how it played out.
And then I think you had a problem with the physical, but Ron Wolf still believed in you, right? Is that?
Yeah. So I go up. You know, when I'm traded, I have to fly up. It was, I think it was February. I think. You may know.
Which is a good introduction to Green Bay weather.
It was colder than hell. It snowed like the Dickens. And I had to do a physical and met the press and all. It wasn't a mini camp weekend. It was just come up, spend a couple of days, get to know coaches and you know, all that stuff. But I remember getting off the plane and I was like, "Whoo, man, this!" I think I left 75 degrees.
Sure.
But when I did my physical, I didn't think nothing of it. Later on, no one came and told me, "Hey, you failed." But I went about my day, and the few days that I was there on that initial trip up, thinking everything was okay. Well, Ron later told me that they failed me on the physical and went up and told him, "This guy won't play 3 years."
Yeah.
And he said, "I'll take those 3 years." So we're not failing him.
It must have been amazing knowing Ron believed in you so much. I mean, right?
No question. And I talk to Ron once a month still to this day. He'll text me, "Hey, you free to talk?" It's the same deal every day. And if I'm free, I'm like, "Yeah." And he'll call me. We'll talk 5 or 10 minutes. "Hey, what's the latest and greatest?" And it seems like every time in that conversation, we always get to a point where if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be talking to you right now, and vice versa.
Right.
I owe a great deal of gratitude for him believing in me.
And obviously believed in you, and they made the trade. But when you first got to Green Bay, you were backing up Majkowski, right? And there was a lot of interest in. There was some momentum from Majkowski at that time. So how did you feel about that?
Me and Don got along great. I'll be honest with you, and I told Don this numerous times. The opening game, we played the Vikings in Lambeau. I didn't know anything about the rivalry. I didn't know anything about because in Atlanta we didn't play either team. We actually played the Packers late in the year, my rookie year, but I didn't know anything about Minnesota. Well, they had Dolman. Their defense was loaded. Well, I didn't know a good team from a bad team, really. The only thing I had to go by was my time with Atlanta. So, and Chris Miller, who had a great year that year I was with him. I'd heard a lot about Majkowski, but didn't know much about him.
Yeah.
That game he played, we lost in overtime. It was a hell of a game. I didn't see the field. But I remember thinking, I am never going to play here because he played his rear end off.
Yep.
And it came down to, a last play deal. But he was tough. He made plays. He got back up. I mean, he just kept on. And I was like, I'm never going to see the field. So I was like, oh, crap, here we go again. That was my initial feeling.
Well, and like I told you, I grew up in Green Bay, and I was getting to the age of watching football at that time, and we all thought in Green Bay, Don Majkowski was the guy. We didn't really know anything about you because we thought we got this guy. Yeah. Look what's happening, and then obviously things didn't work out so well for him. That's the way football is, with injuries and whatnot. But you had again this kind of similar opportunity. Yeah. So how was that time when it happened? What do you remember from that game?
Well. So I don't play the Minnesota game. We lose in overtime. The following week, we played Tampa in Tampa.
Yep.
They were not good. I would say we were not good at based on off of previous years. Neither one of us, neither team could go brag. But they had us like 30-something to 7 at halftime, and it was ugly. And Holmgren says, "I'm going to put you in." He said, "Don't F it up any more than it is already," because it was ugly.
Yeah.
And that put a lot of pressure on me. And lo and behold, my first play, I get the ball tipped, and I have a decision to make. Do I bat it down or do I catch it? And I chose, I'm going to catch it. So I made a bad situation even worse because I thought, in fact, when I went to the sidelines, Holmgren goes, "Can you tell me what you were thinking?" I said, "I thought I was going to score." I ended up losing 7 yards, but I thought I was going to score, and that was kind of my mentality my whole career. So that game was kind of a wash. I got in, but we wasn't going to win.
Yeah.
It was just to get my feet wet. And then back to the way it was. Don's the starter the following week against Cincinnati at home. They're 2-0. We're 0-2. And we're struggling. Don's struggling. And he gets hurt.
Yep.
The rest is history. I had no reps with the first, just like college. And I'll never forget, I run in, get in the huddle, TV timeout, and I'm full. All my linemen, Ron Hallstrom, Rich Moran, James Campen, Tootie Robbins, Ken Rutgers, are all in their 30s. They're ornery. And I get in there and I say, "Hey guys, we're gonna get the ball. We're going down and score." And they was like, "Shut the F up and call the play." I was like, "Okay." So that was kind of my first introduction to pro football.
Thrown in the fire right away, and your linemen are telling you to shut up and just play, right?
Yeah. But I slowly gained there. Because once they saw me play and the enthusiasm, they knew they had to get up off the couch and show a little enthusiasm because I was going to slap them in the ass if they didn't.
Well, and there's a lot of videos out there, too. I mean, you would set blocks on people, too. I mean, you weren't just asking them to do it. You do it for other folks as well, right? I mean, your teammates as well.
I'd do whatever it took to win.
So I think they probably saw that you were in it to win it after that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The only thing I want to skip back is obviously your first pass was to yourself, which is iconic, right? And,
That was a great trivia question for a long time.
it was. What did your dad have to say about that? What did he think?
My dad had more to say about my passing career after I left high school than he had to do with my 3 years of playing for him. We never talked passing. The only time we talked passing when I played for him was I'm like, "Dad, we need to throw the ball. You need to run the plays I call and shut up. Let me worry about play calling." I'm like, "Well, I'm never going to get a scholarship." Well, if you can play, they'll find you. That was kind of his motto. And if he were here today, he'd say, "You only got one offer, but it worked out pretty good for you."
Right.
And it's hard to argue against that. But when I got to the pros, he wanted to become this quarterback guru and passing guru. And he was always, most of the time, it was in good fun. But sometimes I'd have, he'd be like, "Well, you went 28 for 33, but you could have gone." And I'm like, "Wait a minute. For someone who never would let me throw, I don't want to hear a damn thing about what I should have or could have done."
Right.
But and he was more, I don't know how to explain it. He wasn't overly critical throughout my whole career, whether it be with playing for him, college or pros. But he was always reluctant, and I don't know the reasons why, but I think he was always reluctant to give too much praise because he thought it would go to my head.
Seemed like he always wanted you to push yourself by him not get you complacent, right? He always wanted you can always do better.
And I get that, it would have never gone to my head. Don't get me wrong, because I love to play, and I was going to do whatever it took to win and see that, I played my best. And that wasn't always the case, but that was the effort I gave.
Yeah.
But in his mind, and I can understand it, if he's like, "Boy, you played great, I'm really proud of you," then you start hearing that over and over again. You don't work as hard.
Right.
And that may have happened with other players, but it wouldn't happen with me. But that's the way he coached me. And
He was worried about it, so he wanted to make sure that never happened.
he wanted that drive to always be there.
And it was, and I think you gave a story too, because it seems, and I know a lot of competitors are this way, but you thought at any time you could win the game, right? You're always looking to win it. And there was another story because you went into that Cincinnati game, obviously, but there was another Cincinnati game where you're talking about where Holmgren told you to do like a kind of conservative play, and if you didn't get it, right?
Yeah, and I ended up throwing
Yeah,
it.
can you tell me that story? Because I think that's a good
It was
one.
right before half. It was in Green Bay. Mark Ingram was one of my receivers. And Mike, we got a timeout. I had, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, whatever, not a lot of time. So we were definitely in field goal range. So there's no guarantees, but you go, "Okay, we got a field goal. Only throw this if it's wide open." Well, that's the worst thing you could have said to me. Well, I knew I could throw it not with the best of them. I could out-throw anybody.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how many times I tried to throw it through people. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Right.
This time it worked. But I'll never forget the play. 21, halfback Texas. marking, instead of lines up out wide, he comes in tight. We kind of disguise a play that we ran fairly often.
Okay.
And he's got a little skinny post, almost like a go route. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not even really a post. You bend him with the ball, but based on coverage, he could stay straight if he wanted.
Yeah.
So I called a play, and I said, Mark, I'm throwing it no matter what. And you can see I came off the mound, Roger Clemens,
Yeah.
Nolan Ryan. And how it got through three guys, I have no idea. Even when I look at it today, I go, I have no idea how that ball got through there. But Holmgren, typical Holmgren, he wasn't like, yeah. He was like, all right, that was a good job, but don't ever not do what I tell you to do again, which I didn't listen to him very much.
No, I mean, that's why you were the gunslinger. And I think I had Gilbert Brown on, and he said they always knew that they could win the game with you, but they never got too comfortable when they came off the field because,
They could be right back out there.
Right, that's what he said. But I think even opposing players would often, if they were on the other side, they wanted to see what you're going to do because it was so, what's he going to do? He might throw a touchdown, he might not, but you kept it interesting for everybody.
Well, as I got older, it was more calculated.
Yeah.
But it was still Riverboat gambler.
Yeah.
And that was just, I think that goes back to how I played growing up.
Yeah.
It wasn't a structured 7-on-7, learn the passing game, learn the ins and outs of how to play the quarterback position, especially from a passing perspective. It was like there were some throws that I threw in high school that were running plays.
Yeah.
And I'd have linemen 20 yards downfield and would throw it, a busted play. And so that kind of carried over to my college and pro career.
And obviously you started having more and more success and you at the lead, you're leading the Packers and you get to a Super Bowl appearance, right? That first Super Bowl. And I mean, which is amazing too, because I believe, was it maybe the year before that or 2 years, you had the ankle injury as well before
I had multiple.
But I mean, it just to be playing at that level, that toughness to keep, to get to the highest point to win the Super Bowl with that kind of.
Well, I think people might think it's easy to get to the Super Bowl. I always use Dan Marino as an example. Dan threw for, I think, 48 touchdowns as a rookie. And they went to the Super Bowl. Had unbelievable numbers. And they lost the Super Bowl, but everyone, including Dan, including me, everyone figured this guy will go back. No telling how many times.
Yep.
He never went back.
Yeah.
As good as he was as a rookie, he never went back. That don't tell you how hard it is. So for me to get there and to go to two, first of all, what an honor. To win one, there's a lot of guys that great players that didn't. But we thought we had to get through Dallas before we ever got to one.
Which was hard. It was a challenge.
Well,
right?
we couldn't.
Yeah.
The way we got through them is Carolina beat them.
Yeah.
And we didn't have to play them.
And it's interesting too because, like you said, growing up, Dallas was it was your favorite team, but then they were the ones that kind of always the villain for you. They just ruined. They shut you down in the playoffs, right?
I'll be honest, they were good.
Yeah.
They were loaded. I don't think they had a bad position on either side of the ball where you could say one of our guys could play. You couldn't dent their lineup. I mean, they were good.
Well, then you get to the Super Bowl 96-97 season, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, how are you thinking when now you're getting into Super, not before you won it, but you're there? What's your thought process? Is the fact that you're at the highest game you're going to be playing in?
It was really surreal. You're there. You're in it. And the same can be said for experiences that maybe you have. It doesn't have to be Super Bowl where you get to the pinnacle of whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you recognize that, but it doesn't seem real, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And of all places, it's near my hometown, which there was good and bad in that. A lot of people wanted tickets. That if it would have been in L.A., a lot of people wouldn't want tickets because they couldn't get there. So the stress of that, but the jubilation of I'm playing in the friggin' Super Bowl. regardless of where it was. It just happened to be 50 minutes from where I grew up. So, I mean, it was. I think later on in my career, I appreciated it more. Not that I don't want to, maybe that's a poor way of explaining it. I appreciated it, but maybe soaking it all in, especially as a young player, 26 years old, you think, oh, what's the big deal?
Yep.
I'll go to a bunch and enjoy the ride. And next thing you know, you didn't go to any after, and you didn't soak it in.
Yeah.
That was sort of where I was in my career at that time.
When you're getting ready for the Super Bowl, I mean, did you feel pretty confident that you guys were going to, I mean, I know you think you can win any game, but how did you feel about your
That year we were really confident.
Okay.
We felt like, now we had a lot of injuries. We had especially at the receiver position and offensive line. We mixed and mingled guys all throughout the year.
Yeah.
But Ron Wolf did a great job of bringing in someone who would be a fit for us at that time. Like Bruce Wilkinson played, I think, left tackle for us during the playoffs. Andre Rison.
Yep.
He came in, hardly knew any plays. We gave him about 5 plays to go with, but he played dynamite for us and had one of the bigger plays in Packers Super Bowl history. But we knew, even with the injuries or setbacks, we knew that we were going to make a run.
And obviously you did. You know, you won the Super Bowl that year. And then how did it feel achieving basically the top of the top, you know, in the NFL?
You know, I've told people this so many times. Like when I was up on the podium afterwards, you know, and I watched the college championship game, and it always brings back those memories when I see the podium. Guys up there they laughing and cheering and hugging and passing the trophy off I was kind of like looking around. If you go back and watch footage of it, and I was like, it was almost depressing. And what I mean by that is it was over.
Yeah.
And I realized at that point that it wasn't necessarily the game or the Super Bowl that was, don't get me wrong, I greatly appreciate it, but it was the what leading up to
The journey?
The journey.
Yeah.
And that was over. And I don't know if depressed is the right word, but I was just kind of like, now what?
Yeah.
You know, it's like I expected more.
Then the next year, you did go, you know, you went back to Super
Yeah.
Bowl again, not the same result, but I think that's John Elway was obviously the quarterback at the opposing team, and he was on that journey that you had been on, right? Because he hadn't gotten it yet either, right?
He had been to several, but no luck.
But hadn't, actually got the ring.
And I, you know, talking to John and like Jim Kelly and those guys who went, John obviously ended up winning one, but up to that point, he hadn't won one. And to a man, each one said, I would rather not go than lose.
Yeah.
Because Jim Kelly and I were always close. And I was like, Jim, what you did was, and he was an unbelievable player. And to go, I think he went 3 years in a row and lost all 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, it might have been 4 total. I can't remember if he was on the 4th one, but they went, yeah.
Like I told Jim, I'm like, that's incredible what you did. And he's like, yeah, bro, you won one. It's easy for you to say, I'd rather not go than lose them.
Yeah.
So John, obviously, up to that point, had probably had the same feeling. I think it was one of the better games that we played. I know offensively it was back and forth in that game. And if you were a fan of football and didn't really have a dog in the hunt, you would have said, that was a hell of a game.
To that same point, you know, eventually you went to the Vikings, right? And you were in the championship game in
New Orleans.
Yeah, and you end up losing. And I've heard it where you gave an interview, but like that was one of the, like, to your point, it was kind of that big, I was there and we didn't win it, and it kind of haunted you for a while, right?
Oh, it still haunts me to this day.
Yeah.
More so because where I was in my career, I was at the end of my career, and like when Marino went to the Super Bowl as his rookie year, you think, well, if I play 15 years, we'll probably go back multiple times. There'll be other opportunities.
Right.
I knew where I was in my career, this was maybe the last time I'd have this opportunity.
And you were this close too, right?
So close.
Yeah.
And I'd been close on numerous occasions before and lost one, as we talked about. But I knew that this, and statistically speaking, that year, my 20th year, no, my 19th year, was my best year in 20 years.
I know that's one of the wild things is obviously Aaron Rodgers gets drafted. And that process, you weren't exactly thrilled about it, but you got to the 2007 year and you were playing like your best football.
Well, that was my best year statistically as my 16 years as a Packer.
Yeah.
Just happened to be my last year there.
Yeah, and so then you ended up getting you get traded to the Jets in 2008, but then 2009 we're talking about again another just wild excellent year, right? And
yeah, and I had to have surgery when I left the Jets. I had the option of going back or hopefully having them cut me, because there was a clause built in that they couldn't trade me to an NFC North team. So they cut me, but I knew I had to have surgery because the 9th game of the year with the Jets, I tore my throwing bicep. I ended up playing the rest of the year, but played awful, and I knew that if it didn't snap on its own, I was going to have surgery. And I'm like, when they let me go, I knew that Minnesota was going to come calling, but I knew I had to have surgery. And at that time in my career, I was kind of burnt out, beat up, but I knew if I committed to play, I needed to have surgery. So I had to wrestle with that for a while. But that year, I felt like I was 21 again. My arm felt as live as it's ever felt.
And when you got picked up by Minnesota, I mean, obviously Minnesota, Green Bay, big rivalry, kind of like Chicago and Green Bay. Was there a little bit of I'm going to show Green Bay that I'm still the guy?
Of course,
Yeah.
I think the competitive nature of any athlete would do the same thing or have the same feeling. You want to show your old team, you still got it.
Yeah.
And if not, then you're in the wrong sport, or you should be doing something else.
And that's what I got from you. I don't think it was so much that it was I don't like Green Bay. It's like I want to show them that I'm
it had
still,
nothing to do with
I'm still a
disliking Green
competitor.
Bay.
I'm
Yeah.
still good. I still got it, right?
Yeah, my 16 years in Green Bay was wonderful. But now I'm playing with a different team that's playing against the Packers. How could you not want to show your old team? It has nothing to do with like or dislike. I had a lot of friends on that team, a lot of friends, coaches, people in the front office, a lot of friends. But that doesn't matter. The competitive part of it overrode any of that. I wanted to show that I still had it.
And then you came back for that game, in the visitors' locker room in Lambeau, right?
Yeah.
And how did that feel?
Well, the ride in from Appleton was the only time I always wondered why teams stayed in Appleton visiting teams, and what that ride was like. Because it's kind of a long ride.
Yep.
For a visiting team. Usually you got 5 minutes and you're at the stadium. Well, I got to do it, and it looked like, and growing up Mardi Gras, you'd have cars and floats going up and down the highway, traffic everywhere. That's what it was like. And there was all these people with signs, "Hey, we'll never forget you, Brent."
Yeah.
Or "Burning my jersey," or
Yeah, right.
a coffin with the number 4 in it. And it was like all the way from Appleton up. And I sat in the very, very back of the bus, and it was just heightening my anxiety, because I was like, just calm down, calm down. The guys were looking back, like seeing what I'm like, I'm fine, turn around, I'm fine. Heart was beating.
Sure.
But I thought the first game in the Metrodome would have broke the ice and okay, when I go to Lambeau, I'll be fine. I was twice as bad at Lambeau. Just the anxiety and the pressure to perform was immense.
Well, I think afterwards too, didn't you hug Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got along with Aaron, in spite of what the media tries to portray. I got along fine with Aaron. I had no problems with them drafting Aaron. And I knew at some point he had to play.
Yeah.
I had a problem with how they handled the whole situation.
I mean, then you became. I think you've been obviously there was the initial with him backing you up and then taking over, but after that, you guys became. I think you get along, right?
We got along good for those 3 years, and I knew that I felt like he could really play. He had a great arm. He brilliant football mind.
So we're getting tight on time, so I want to just wrap it up here because I could ask you more and more questions, but one thing I want to get to is eventually you come back to Green Bay to have your jersey retired, right? And so that's kind of the full circle for you. And can you just tell me how that felt?
Well, I'll be honest with you. That's the first time back since the last game as a Viking.
Yeah.
It was 5 years later. So I was booed pretty good when I went in Lambeau as a player. So that was fresh in my mind. All these thoughts are going through your mind, like, how will I be received? Will they love me? Are they still going to boo me? Or they hate me? And I was hoping for the best. And it was way better than I could have ever dreamed of. You know, there's 70-some-odd thousand, not for a game, not for a scrimmage, just to see me get put into the Hall of Fame there at Lambeau Field. And, I mean, it was emotional.
Yeah.
Very emotional, but in a good way.
And it feel good to come back to the fans that initially you'd won so much for.
It was like I never left.
And, I mean, what would you say, now having played around the league, would you say about the Green Bay fan base?
Like I've always said, the best fan base in all sports. I know Yankees maybe will argue that, and other people will argue. But if you were starting a franchise today, would you think Green Bay would be a good place to start? No. But look at what it is now. You got to wait 20, 30 years for a season ticket. There's people that's dying to go to a game. That finding an empty seat in Lambeau, regardless of how the team's doing, is virtually impossible.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right, Brett, thanks for coming on. Thanks for answering our questions. Thanks for giving us more information. Like I said, I could ask you questions forever, but I appreciate your time, and I really appreciate you giving us some insight on your career.
I did my best. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, wait, don't head out just yet. Do you have a story that's so Midwest it couldn't have happened anywhere else? Or do you know a Midwest legend in your own life? Give me a call at 866-MWLEGND. Your story may be featured on our future episode or on our socials. Looking forward to hearing your Midwest legend.